Welcome back to HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball and the NBA draft inside and out. I am Rich Harris, and thank you for joining us again. We are joined by the usual suspects, Jake Kopstick and Ayab Booney and Cam Reel. Cam Reel has returned after a hiatus of about 9 months. Cam?
Yeah, Rich, it's been a while, man. It's good to see some new faces on the HP pod. I left the show because I knew I was starting this new teaching job, and like the first year of teaching is just frankly hell, and I didn't have the time to kind of do both.
And what grade were you doing junior high? What grade?
Was that, Rich? Sorry.
What grade?
8th grade.
Okay.
Grade 6.
So everybody's hormones are kicking in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they don't, like when you're little, well, at least back in my day, when we were little, like 6th grade and under, we all looked up to the teachers. But then 7th and 8th grade, then we started to get different ideas.
Yeah, no, that's about the time where I become the person that's getting KP'd, Yeah, man, it's and it was interesting for my basketball journey to go from talking about NBA prospects to coaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls ball. That was a paradigm shift. That was something else.
So what are the final scores of those games?
A high scoring, like a real scorcher of a game, maybe 18-15.
Nice.
I don't know. Nice. In a slug match, you might be looking at like a nice 12-point win. It gets rough out there.
Right. So on par with Georgetown and Loyola Chicago.
Absolutely. No difference.
All righty. So, Cam, we in the East, I don't know if this ever affected you, Booney, but the wildfires, did they ever affect you in the Bay Area?
Not where I'm living, no. That's more about hour and a half away. I mean, you could smell it and see it, and it does affect the air. No, as far as any type of danger, no, not where I'm.
Right. Yeah. And Cam, I assume wildfires have up there in the mountains.
Yeah, we
are pretty prevalent.
Yeah, 2020 we had some pretty wild ones that like got pretty close to Boulder, so it was really smoky. But I mean, this year we've gotten so much rain. Like, I mean,
we haven't gotten any. We haven't gotten any. I've never seen a spring like this.
Yeah,
never seen a spring like this. The grass looks like it's August. Like the dog days of August. It's all brown. And there's wildfires in Canada, and it's coming all the way down to New York, Philly. Yeah. And yesterday, it was like walking outside, and your neighbor was burning all his damp leaves. You could taste it; it would make your throat sore, and But the funny part of it is, and probably none of you guys, except for maybe Booney, can relate to this. Their parents grew up in the Depression, so they grew up very frugal. And so I got a text from my mother yesterday, and she told me, whatever you do when you go outside, wear a mask and don't run the air conditioners because it will contaminate the filters. And I'm like, aren't the filters there to filter the air? But that's the way they think. My father is one of those types of guys that we'd be shoveling snow and he'd say, "Oh, my feet are cold and wet." And I was like, "Dad, those old boots have a hole in it." You got 2 brand new pair of boots. He'd like, "Yeah, I know, but I don't want to ruin them." So they were saying same type of logic yesterday. Don't run your air conditioners to filter the air because it'll ruin the filters. But anyway, so we'll move on. Anything other pressing that we need to talk about before we move on to the College Hoops Notebook? All right. Everyone doing well? Booney?
Yeah, same old Giants big win today. I know you guys don't care about that. But
game? I think the Yankees may have gotten canceled because of the...
Yeah, they did. They did.
Because of the smoke.
It's about time the Yankees got canceled.
All right. So We're going to talk about the latest withdrawals from the NBA draft. Of course, the deadline passed last week, but basically the tack that we're taking is basically we're going to be looking at who stayed in and who withdrawed and how that impacts college basketball. So at the top of our list, I believe, and Jake, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think are the two most prized people still in the portal, and that's Grant Nelson and Kaluma, both pulled out of the draft. And I think they're the best guys still left in the portal. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, especially when you talk about how Olivier Nkamhoua just committed to Michigan recently. It's definitely down to these guys. I think I would give Nelson maybe the edge. It'd be interesting to see what he can do at a high level. Sounds like he's down to Alabama and Arkansas, which I'm not positive Arkansas has a scholarship open. They filled pretty quick, and they have 2 top 100 guys coming in. They have all the transfers. And it seems like Bama's been a little bit quiet. I feel like Alabama definitely has a space for Grant Nelson, but seems like he's down to those two. I don't know if Arkansas is going to tell somebody they don't have a spot for him, but they're going to throw a lot of money his way if he decides to go there. So.
And there's a lot of teams out there that definitely have room for him.
I always saw Nelson as a Gonzaga type of player.
That's what I thought too.
I'm sure they don't.
Drew has been thinking that as well.
Well, he's just selfish.
I think he thinks that every guy's a Gonzaga player.
Yeah, he's just selfish. He can share the love with the rest of us. But yeah, I mean, Grant Nelson is nice. I was texting you guys about him.
Yes,
throughout the year. I'm like, I think he probably could have stayed in the draft.
I don't.
He's still raw, but there's some I hate to use the term unicorn, but he's got a little bit of that.
No, definitely.
His testing numbers showed that. He tested great, but
yes.
It didn't seem to go over into his play. He didn't look good when he was on the floor. He looked disorganized. He looked in a hurry. He didn't look good at all to me.
No. He doesn't yet know how to play with players at his level. That's what he has to learn. He has to learn, and what he's asked to do at North Dakota State, he's not always capable of. It's very similar to Drew Pember in that very turnover prone. And part of that's from trying to do it all on his own, but also, a lot of these unicorns, which we'll get into tomorrow, starting off with the number 1 overall pick in our mock draft, just try to do a little too much, in my opinion. But all right.
Easy with the spoilers, Rich.
That's funny.
All righty. So now with Kaluma leaving Creighton, they will get back Trey Alexander and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Of course, they lost Nebhard to Gonzaga. So they also added some other guys. So I think Creighton's going to be in good shape, but I think they need one more piece to be at the same level, somebody to replace Kaluma, basically, to be at the same level they were last year. Anyone disagree?
No, I definitely agree. I really like Stephen Ashworth coming in, guy that can play make and can shoot the lights out. They bring in Isaac Trout from Virginia, but I feel like they need a guy next to Trey Alexander on the wing that can produce, like losing. Well, never mind. I forget that Shireman's got a 5th year. But I do think they could use another guy for sure. I feel like they're not.
Yeah, I was thinking good. I was thinking more of a power forward type to complement Kalkbrenner. Somebody that they could go when Kalkbrenner gets some foul trouble. Somebody who could maybe stretch the floor. A Grant Nelson would be nice.
Well, they got Lawson from Memphis, who's a 3-star guy.
Yeah.
I think that might be part of the reason why Kaluma went to the portal too.
Yeah, I doubt he was scared of Lawson taking a lot of his playing time.
No, but I think I do think that Kaluma wanted to be showcased.
Right.
And, so these players are getting a little bit smarter as far as where we're going. As far as we saw the transfer from the kid from Tennessee, to Michigan. And I don't think he transfers to Michigan if Caleb Love is still there. They're looking at what's going on with the roster, where they fit, how many shots they're going to get, how many minutes they're going to play to make their decision.
Right. So moving on, Auburn probably got the best news of all the players withdrawing from the draft because they got Janiah Broome, who probably could have stayed and gotten drafted, Jalen Williams, and Dylan Cardwell. These guys are all bigs. Jalen Williams is more of a stretch four. Cardwell and Broome are pretty much straight up centers. And Broome did everything you could have asked for, I think, at the Combine and the G League Elite Camp. So a little bit of a surprise he actually stayed or came back to college.
I'm not surprised. If he would have got picked, he would have been probably in that 50 range.
Yes.
But look, if that's the case and you think there's barely, you have a small chance, come back for another year. He'll play a lot. He'll get another year of SEC ball in case there's anyone that's not sold on him playing the 1 year in the SEC coming over from Morehead State. So play another year. You'll get a ton of time. Really good conference. I personally, I actually really like this move better than him staying in the draft for Janiah Broome.
Okay. And then Houston, we kind of suspected this would happen, but they got back their backcourt. LJ Cryer, who earlier had transferred from Baylor. So we figured he would, why would he transfer to Houston and then stay in the draft? Usually don't see somebody do that. And, of course, their point guard, Jamal Sneed. So Houston should have one of the better backcourts in the country.
No question.
Yeah, absolutely. And pair him with I have my Temple shirt on, pair him with Damian Dunn, too. They're going to be good. Terrence Arsenault's staying. Emmanuel Sharp's got another year under his belt, can stretch the floor. Still a very, very good perimeter for Houston.
Yeah, well, I think what that team is missing, again, kind of like Creighton, is kind of a well-balanced four who can provide some offense and some defense. They have the guys who can rebound and block shots, but most of their bigs don't do much else. So it would be nice to see some more versatility. One of their bigs have some more versatility. Speaking of versatility, we have Mr. Coleman Hawkins, who was dishing out assists left and right at the Combine, and Terrence Shannon Jr., who blew everybody away at the Combine in the athletic testing. He finished top 15, I believe, overall. We've been tracking prospects at all different Combines. And Shannon had like the 15th best overall performance in our database, and also was definitely tested out better than any athlete this year. Surprised that they're both coming back.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Yeah, Illinois has always kind of had a knack for holding on to their guys, especially when they're kind of on that borderline of NBA talent.
Right. And a route that Kofi Cockburn should have probably gone through. I think he had the opportunity to come back, and he chose not to. I think Kofi's now playing in Japan, averaging about 25 and 12 a night against guys who are 5'6". But anyway, love Kofi. I got to interview him at one of the Combines, and I hate to say this, and I probably shouldn't say it, but Kofi was one of those guys that you could tell thought his game and his potential was more than it really was. I mean, I just kind of knew he was coming out. It's like this guy thinks he's better than he really is. But I don't know. I just think sometimes you need someone to check you. You know what I'm saying? But all right,
I hear you, Rich. I think. You know how much I love Kofi Cockburn, though.
Yeah.
Like, and in a different era of the NBA, he would have been a first-round pick.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. The athleticism with him. I think Hawkins is a similar story. Personally,
What was Sean Bradley? Wait, I want to pick up on your point. What was Sean Bradley? A top 10 pick? Easily. So if Kofi comes out in that draft, he's drafted before Sean Bradley.
Yeah, I'd take him first.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about who's the guy who never shuts up, Kwame Brown. He was right up there, Kwame Brown territory, who was the number 1 overall pick.
The thing with Kwame too was he didn't have any of the real back to the basket skills that Kofi does.
Right.
I think like with Kofi, I feel like it's more of like an NBA style issue where he just doesn't fit in. Versus like if you had more guys, Jokic and Embiid size that were posted up, maybe he would have a place because you just need a body to throw it.
That's true, but then you look at the counter of that. When's the last time we saw a guy like Zach Edey or Kofi Coburn take somebody and win the national championship?
In a minute.
Those guys usually end up losing in the second round. Yeah. Now, I'm not picking on the Big Ten, but usually when you think of bigs, that's where the big traditional, and when we're saying traditional, we're talking 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s,
yeah.
traditional.
I mean, realistically, the last guy to do it was Odin. And didn't they end up losing in the championship game?
Yes, they did win the national championship.
So, there you go. That was the last guy.
So you had a point to make about Coleman Hawkins.
Well, with Hawkins, I think the thing that's going to help him out by staying at Illinois for another year is to develop a little bit more of that ball in hand type of game.
Yes.
I think he really thrives being able to hit cutters and kind of make guys miss by drawing, kind of like that, kind of like a Kyle Alexander type game where he's drawing attention because he's
Kyle Alexander or Kyle Anderson?
Kyle Anderson, excuse me. Yeah, right. Good catch, Serge.
Kyle Alexander is a former UT shot blocker.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's where I pulled that from. But I mean, like, I want to see him with the ball in his hands a little bit more before I'm ready to take him in that upper second round, which I think is kind of the sweet spot for a guy like him.
Right.
Because he is talented. He's got the passing. He's got the defensive length. He's got pretty good lateral agility. But I just want to see a little bit more independence offensively from him.
Yeah, he's streaky, and again, I'm going to keep on bringing this up, but he's another one that's turnover prone.
I mean, totally. It's hard to not be when you're a 6'10" guy that's trying to handle
to facilitate. Yes, correct. Again, another prelude to the top pick in the draft.
Rich. Stop it.
All right, so now we'll talk about the San Diego State Aztecs. Who are the Aztecs losing, Jake or Booney? You would know better than I, but they're getting back. Who pulled out of the draft was Jaden Ledee, who played great in the NCAA tournament, and Lamont Butler, the hero of the NCAA tournament. So two guys I think might have second round potential next year. But right now, is San Diego State, are they going to be able to challenge again for the national championship?
I don't know about national championship. I still think they'll be very good, and I'm glad that Brian Butcher got his flowers this year because he's one of the best coaches in the sport. But Keyshawn Johnson's leaving, which even I still don't know why he decided to leave to go to Arizona now. He will start there with Tubelis in the draft, and now Jaden Ledee can slide into that spot vacated by Nathan Mensah. But Nathan Mensah's out, Matt Bradley's out, Aguaca Rope and Seiko are out of eligibility, but Darion Trammell is going to come back. Micah Parrish is going to come back. They got Reese Dixon Waters from USC. They just got a recruit from who's from Vegas. They have some young guys on the bench who are going to have to play more. Some freshmen that had to sit behind that deep lineup that they had. So I still think they're going to be very good. And then you bring back Trammell, Butler, would be still going to be a good team.
What it sounds like what they're really missing is that shot blocking presence that Ledee can't really provide. I mean, he's very physical and strong, but he's not a bad shot blocker, but he's not a great shot blocker. And Mensah really allowed them to, let their defense, to kind of draw everything into him and let him swat it away. That seems what's going to be missing unless there's somebody there that I'm not aware of.
Well, they have Jay Powell from Campbell, but again, he's a good defender, but not like a prolific shot blocker. Also tough when you go from a guy who just won the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year back-to-back years. Like I don't really think that's like realistic to be able to fill a void like that.
Yeah, I'm just looking over. Yeah, J Powell is a nice all-around forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't really. Beside Ledee, on our draft board. Now I'm just looking at the guys on our draft board. There's Ledee's probably the biggest guy on the roster. So yeah, that will be a missing piece. All right, so another Final Four participant, Florida Atlantic, gets back Elijah Martin, John L. Davis, who didn't get a lot of traction in the combines. As far as I know, Florida Atlantic returns everybody. What do we expect for them now that they're moving into the American Conference?
Yeah, they're still going to be very good. I think preseason top 10. I like this team. Like I don't think I have a problem top 10, but like I do understand some people saying like the tournament projects everything more. Like you get a bubble everything when everyone's got eyes on you.
And we talked about this when we were doing our March Madness, analysis, that everything kind of fell into place for them to track their way all the way to the Final Four. For example, Purdue losing, right away.
Yeah, Marquette lost, Duke lost. Yeah, I mean
Tennessee's an inept offensive team.
Mm-hmm.
Throw that in there.
But hey, they to win as many games as they did, they're still going to be good. They don't have Michael Forrest, who was a bench guy, but that's it. They bring 8 of their top 9 back, including these guys. I never thought that these 2 would declare for the draft, but if it can, because you get
it's that Final Four thing.
Yeah, but you get 3 times to test the waters before you have to declare.
That is correct. 3 times.
Yeah, this doesn't hurt these guys. I don't see why they wouldn't do it.
No.
But I never thought that they would leave. And funny enough, they played a great first round game against Memphis, and it's probably going to be FAU and Memphis right up there for the American next year.
Right. Exactly. And you know what? We when we picked our brackets, I said, Memphis has a chance to make it all the way to the Final Four. Everything falls right. And I was about 1 point off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about another team that's bringing everybody back, Michigan State. I think they're bringing everybody back. What do you think about Michigan State's chances next year, Booney?
I mean, they're bringing back those 2, that backcourt. That was such a big deal for them. So they're going to be right there as well. Hogarth's a tank. What, 6'5", 6'6" point guard? He is an absolute beast. So they're going to be right there as well. They lost Pierre Brooks, who went to Butler, I believe, the 3-star guy. But and as always, they got a good little recruiting class coming in. So I think they're going to be okay. And they got those 2 pieces to that backcourt, which was their main offense last year.
And Tyson Walker. Tyson Walker's the veteran there. So actually, as a 3-guard trio, Hogard and Atkins, who just pulled out of the draft, plus Walker, who didn't even bother. It's hard to find a set of 3, college guards much better. I mean, USC is going to be up there, obviously, with their freshmen, but that's.
Let's not forget about Xavier Booker. They signed too.
Yeah,
top 15 recruit, a little 7-footer.
And Malik Hall, who arguably could be their best overall player, was hurt. Played hurt all last year when he was playing.
So yeah, I mean, I think they're going to make a distinct run if those freshmen come in and play like they can. They're going to be scary with that backcourt.
Yeah.
Because they got Cohen Carr too, 6'7", wingman freshman as well. So they're loaded. They're deep, and they have some veterans too. So I think that was part of the decision for those guys to come back as well. Like, hey, we can make a run at a national championship.
Another team in the Big Ten is going to be bringing everyone back, and is Purdue, because Zach Edey pulled out of the draft. Anyone surprised Zach pulled out of the draft? He was getting some pretty decent traction.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I thought he had enough traction to stay in the draft. But look, if anybody said that NIL was going to kill college basketball, guess what? The last 2 players of the year decided to come back. I think that's not for nothing. Now, I know they're both international guys, so I don't know what the deal is with them. They're getting paid something. You can't tell me these guys are going there for free. But regardless, hey. You mean because him being Canadian? Yes. Yes, and then same thing with Sheboy. But regardless, he's probably getting paid a lot of money. The last 2 players of the year decided to come back. It's better for the sport. And if you're a college basketball fan, you love this. Even though I thought he could have stayed in, I wouldn't have bashed him at all if Zach Edey would have stayed in.
Yeah, I saw he didn't participate I don't believe he participated at the combine shooting drills, but I saw him just doing some practice from the 3-point line. Very impressed with his shooting stroke. Not dynamic, not like, Victor Wembanyama, who gets nice. When Wembanyama shoots, he looks like a guard. He gets the lift off the ground and everything else. Zach Edey was more like you expect a big man to shoot, kind of feet staying on the ground. So, by the way, Booney, you'll know this better than the youngsters. A set shot. I always thought a set shot was how you release the ball, but I also thought it meant you didn't leave your feet off the ground. What's the definition of a set shot?
2 different types of things. You got a tweener shot, like Steph Curry, for example. Steph Curry wouldn't be considered a jump shot nor a set shot, right? It's the same with Klay Thompson. It's kind of a tweener, right? And then you have a guy like, for example, Kyle Korver or JJ Redick, who had original jump shots, right?
Right.
And then, like, for example, I would say like a guy like, I'm just trying to think as far as a set shot. Like the closest thing to a set shot as far as step lower than Steph Curry would maybe be like a Brandon Pozetnik from Santa Clara. When he's wide open, he has more of a little bit of a set shot, or a Miles Turner from the Pacers.
What would you call Jokic?
Magic Johnson, too.
Jokic is a set shot. That's a good example.
But it's a set shot because he doesn't leave the ground?
Not necessarily. Generally, I would say the main difference is a set shot is generally arm motion driven versus the power in your jump shot is really from your base, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's good to know. So I guess then Edey would be shooting more of a set shot.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to run through some guys over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys. All I think could have stayed in this draft and actually been drafted, and see if anybody has any particular comments about them. And they somewhat surprised that they pulled out. And that's somewhat. That's Dylan Mitchell of Texas, Reese Beekman of Virginia, Matthew Morrell, who tested out very well. He's up there with Shannon in the testing drills, Adem Bona of UCLA, and Judah Mintz of Syracuse. Any comments here other than it's good news for their schools?
What's different now in the draft as far as the kids that are pulling out is the one thing we don't know is the type of deal they're getting from their school, what the motivation is, right? Because obviously, in order, if they're not going to get drafted, the most they're going to make in the NBA is going to be $500,000 for the most part.
Well, they might even make less if they're on an exhibit 10.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. The most you're looking at $500,000 if you get that 2-way contract. But a lot has to do with what they're getting right now in school. Maybe they're getting $300, $400 in nil money, and it doesn't make sense for them to go to the draft.
All things being equal, you got to throw in the education. You got to throw in that you'll be around your friends. And I think you also have to consider the environment. I mean, what's more fun, playing a home game at the University of Texas or playing a home game at, Iowa City in the G League?
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So some other guys that weren't too surprising that they pulled out, but see if you have any comments here. These are guys that I still think had a chance to be drafted, but were more on the fringe. And that was Cliff Amore of Rutgers, Deron Holmes of Dayton, Josiah Jordan James of Tennessee, and Jordan Dingle of St. John's. Not surprised to me that any of these guys pulled out.
No, not at all.
Not surprised, but I am a little bit shocked that Josiah Jordan James is going back to Tennessee.
Well, I'm going to make a comment there because I was told by a Tennessee official that Kamwa Phillips, so Julian Phillips stayed in the draft. Kamwa came back and transferred. First of all, I was told by a friend of the family months ago that Josiah Jordan-James was going to transfer. Instead, he put his name in the draft. In between there, I talked to a Tennessee official. He told me all three are not coming back to Tennessee. There's no scholarships. So unless something has changed there, Josiah Jordan-James would be playing basketball for somebody other than the Volunteers. But his name has not gone into the portal. But I was specifically told no more scholarships at Tennessee.
See, that's fascinating. Because what could he be holding out for at this point to not enter the portal? I mean, is he going to come back and not play on scholarship?
I don't know. I have the dude's phone number, and he's never answered. Because I've been trying to get clarification. I never called it. I just texted him, but. I've been trying to get clarification, and so I'm not sure what he's doing. Yeah. All right. So, all right, some more guys that pulled out, and if you guys have any comments, just slow me down. Eric Gaines of UAB is returning. Emmanuel Miller of TCU. Devo Davis of Arkansas. Antoine Watson of Gonzaga. Dylan Jones of Weber State, and I think he had a good shot at being drafted, by the way. But I'm glad to see him come back. I think he needs to play more athletically, which is going to involve him dropping some weight. Naquan Tomlin of Kansas State, Antonio Reeves of Kentucky, Tristan Newton of UConn, Mark Sears of Alabama, and last but not least, Tyrin Lawrence of Vanderbilt. Now, Lawrence had put his name in the portal, but when he said he was pulling out of the draft, he also said he was going to go back to Vanderbilt. So any comments about that list of about 10 guys?
I have two guys I want to talk about. First is Emmanuel Miller. We'll get to two TCU guys that are leaving, unfortunately, but Jamie Dixon was able to replenish their guards. They got Jameer Nelson Jr. from Delaware. They got Avery Anderson III from Oklahoma State, Trey Tennyson, who's been putting up numbers at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. But getting Emmanuel Miller back's huge. He's got the athleticism, the body, the size to be an NBA player. I just want to see he's got to shoot better. He's got and a lot better at that, because I think when you look at his physical traits and his defense too, I think that's an NBA player, but the shooting is what's going to hold him back. So now that he's going to go as a big forward and go back there, I want to see him shoot the ball better. And then next is Devo Davis. This was the most important decision in like the entire offseason for Arkansas. No matter who they brought in, needed a guy who's been there, who's been a leader, give them a lead guard that already knows how they play, and when it wouldn't be such a big transition for Musselman to have to work in Battle and L. Ellis and Keon Menafield. He's got Devo Davis back and a bunch of transfers, and he played well last year, led this team really well. So really, really big move to get Devo Davis back for Arkansas, which should be very good once again.
Yeah, one of my favorite players in college basketball. So, Booney, I'm going to start with you. We're talking now about the players who decided to stay in the draft and talk about two of the bigger teams in the country. UConn, who had the chance to bring pretty much that entire team back, but they're losing Hawkins, Andre Jackson, and Sonogo. Now, we know they have a great replacement for Sonogo, but I think it's going to be hard to replace Jackson, but Tristan Newton can probably fill that role, but Hawkins' shooting would probably be missed, don't you think?
I mean, look who they just signed, though. I mean, I think who they just signed from the kid from Rutgers might have been one of the biggest surprises.
Yes.
They got 43% from three last year on a Rutgers team that, I don't know, didn't even resemble an offense. He was all they had. I think he's 6'4", he had great size. He's been doing it his whole career. I think that is a hell of a transfer we got, and puts them right back into contention for another national championship. He was huge. I'm not going to put him at the level of Jordan Hawkins, but let's put it this way. Going into their final year, Spencer was more talked about than Jordan Hawkins, I think.
Yeah. Cam Spencer is one of the most underrated. This is a player who's transferring from Rutgers to UConn. Jake and I talked about him the last show. is one of the most underrated players in college basketball and a beautiful shooter. So excellent point, Booney. How about your Zags out there? They lose Julian Strother. They lose Malachi Smith, surprisingly, and Drew Timme. Were you surprised any of these guys? They still could have come back. Were you surprised any of them went?
I was surprised Malachi Smith didn't go back.
Especially since he didn't even get a chance to start regularly last year.
I was a little puzzled by that one. Strother, I was surprised at all.
Yeah. All right, so now we move on to Kentucky. Kentucky lost Shigwe and Livingston. Chris Livingston decided to stay in the draft. I don't know what it is about Kentucky. Even if those guys, it's so funny. I mean, I know some of them have been hanging around longer, maybe the last couple of seasons, but typically, even if they don't show much at Kentucky, they still end up putting their name on the draft and trying to ride their accolades from high school, their high school ratings, all the way to an NBA roster. Livingston, what are you guys' thoughts on him getting drafted? I mean, I think he showed he had moments, but just not enough. You really think you would have liked to see him, but maybe he's afraid to come back to Kentucky, thinking that God knows if he's going to get playing time again.
Yeah, I feel like this is what usually happens. Guys jump ship maybe earlier than they should because, Calipari's always going to have a loaded recruiting class that's going to come in behind them. And it's like, if you don't make the most of your time there in a year or two, who knows what the situation is going to be. But what I will say is and first of all, there's a very good freshman class coming in.
Right.
With Justin Edwards, DJ Wagner, Rob Dillingham from Overtime. Man, it's a hell of a recruiting class, but they didn't get many transfers. Like, this team's probably going to be pretty young to the point where I feel like they actually, Livingston could have come back if he wanted to. Yes. But regardless, that's just what happens at Kentucky. Like, there's a bunch of 5-stars coming in behind you that might take your spot and might be better than you because they're that good. Right. So maybe it's best instead of getting buried, I just go play. I try to go play in the league.
And brace yourself for another, November, December, January of Calipari after every game saying, well, these guys, they're so young. They're so young. That's why we're losing. And I'm just sick of this song and dance. Whose fault's that your team's so young?
I agree with you. I mean, it is. I like the idea of what he's doing as far as what he's recruiting, but every year his whole roster is based on a bunch of 17-year-olds that he is hoping to take into a national championship with not really one go-to guy who can really get you buckets in the tournament. It's over and over every single year. Super frustrating. You think by now with all the rule changes and who he is and what's going on, he changes strategy a little bit and dip into that portal, but no, it's going to be the same.
I think the only thing that's going to change for Kentucky is when they decide to get rid of him or insist that he do things differently. But this is going to sound strange to say, but I don't think it's wise to bring in any more than 2 5-stars, and build with what you have. I think anything more, you start to create chaos. Now, maybe Duke will prove us wrong one of these days. I mean, they seem to have a little better luck than Kentucky, but they usually also always seem to have at least a couple of good veterans still left on the team. So,
what's crazy about Kentucky compared to Duke? The two differences there is Duke creates a culture where Kentucky has the name to, but does not. It just seems year in and year out, it seems to be the same one where again, Duke, every now and then, we'll have those couple guys that stick around, that have that culture, and create something special, which I think they have.
Doesn't it seem like every year Duke or Kentucky is starting from scratch, but you never really, you rarely have that feeling. You rarely have that feeling with Duke that they're starting from scratch. I mean, this year Filipowski is coming back, and he's probably going to probably be the favorite for Player of the Year.
And Roach is coming back.
Right.
Yep. Very Duke, similar to Well, and like kind of like the old Kentucky pre-Calipari, like
Yeah.
you had these guys that were around for an era, right? That you had that one guy. I mean, they've had hundreds of them at this point. I mean, the Shane Battiers, the JJ Redicks, guys that have the talent to make the jump. But Duke has that
even Grant Hill, Leitner, Hurley, they all stuck around.
I mean, you can go down the list, and they still have them.
Yeah.
Continuity matters in every level of basketball. You need guys that know how to play with each other. And Kentucky will always struggle until they manage to convince some of these guys to stay.
The only way they're going to do that is if they stop bringing in, 3 5-stars and 2 4-stars every year.
You have to be able to demonstrate to these guys that staying another year in college is not a detriment to your draft stock. Until they can show that, guys are going to keep leaving because, historically it's shown you're still pretty likely to get picked or at least picked up by a team post-draft. And until somebody sort of zags and makes the decision to stay and actually shows you can improve that stock, then nobody's going to do it.
I think it's very rare where you can make a case where a guy has dramatically hurt his draft stock by staying in college. I'm sure you could think of some, but Booney, do you have?
I was just going to say, to Kentucky's own detriment, that's how they recruit. They recruit you to stay in for a year. Hey, we're going to give you X amount of dollars. After 1 year, call Karl Anthony Towns, call John Wall. That's how they recruit. So it's to their own fault that these kids are leaving.
Right. All right. So Arkansas is Jordan Walsh and Ricky Council decided to leave. They were, 2 players that were on the edge, and they joined Anthony Black and Nick Smith. So anyone surprised that Walsh and Council jumped?
No, I don't think there's room at this point with everyone coming back, the 5 stars, all the transfers. Trevon Brazile is going to come back off injury this year, who started out he was playing very, very well before he tore up his knee. So I just don't think there's space here. Council played, he played well at times that I think it warranted a 2nd-round pick, but the shooting, not great. I thought he forced some bad looks. And then Walsh, there's definitely enough potential there for him to get drafted. He could do a bunch of different things, very versatile. So I'm not surprised, just lack of room. Must get busy.
It's a shame in Walsh's case because every time I see him, he's gotten a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he could have been a star in college basketball this year. So as it is, he's going to be, playing in the G League all year. And I don't know. It's just kind of a shame. Like to see him out there in the limelight, being one of the All-American candidates. But anyway.
You think Jordan Walsh is going to get drafted?
Oh, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he's going to get drafted, but I also think he's not going to see an NBA floor. I think he's going to spend his year in the G League, probably 2 or 3. So, yeah. All right. So moving on, Mike Miles and Damian Baugh decided to leave TCU. Baugh was definitely a surprise to me. I don't see him getting drafted. He wasn't invited to the regular combines at Portsmouth. He tested out poorly, though, which was a shocker. I actually asked TCU's SID, was he injured or something? Because, for example, he had one of the worst times for a guard in the sprint. And, first thing you think about Damian Baugh is you think speed. He really tested out poorly. I got to believe that he wasn't 100%. But still, he's not going to get drafted, and he's probably not. He's not a lock for a 2-way contract either. He's more like an Exhibit 10 guy. So that was a surprise to me.
Agreed. Yeah, Mike Miles, I liked. I don't know if we're going to get there on a draft pick with Mike Miles. I would love it. I would love for him to get drafted, but at the same time, Jamie Dixon got busy with bringing in transfers, but he could have come back for another year. But
Miles is definitely on the fringe of getting drafted.
Oh, you're way better chance than Ball. Ball was like a last minute guy to keep his name in, so I think he was mulling what he was going to do. I thought he should have come back. If one of these guys is going to come back, it should have been him.
Yep. Another guy who you could make an argument, right? I think you could make a really good argument should have come back, but he probably didn't because he's a foreign, not a United States citizen, and that's Azuolas Tubelis of Arizona. And I think that's the only reason why he's in the draft is because he can't get NIL. Because there was nothing that he showed at the combines to say that he was ready to play at the next level. And again, he would have been a player of the year candidate. He needs to improve his athleticism. He needs to improve his shot. That's simple as that. Keontae Johnson, former guest on the show. I think the reason why Keontae jumped was he's 24 years old. And I think he has a solid chance of being drafted. You guys agree?
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, I think anybody that watches Keontae Johnson play loves him. He just plays with so much energy. He's a cutter. He can rebound for a guy his size. He plays with some meanness to him.
Mm-hmm. Good call.
I think NBA teams would be stupid to not take a second round flyer on him.
Yeah. And then one of the biggest winners at the combines was Olivia Maxence Prosper of Marquette. I think he has now put himself in a definite spot to be drafted. And again, a Canadian, can't get NIL. So I think it was pretty much a no-brainer for him. Jalen Clark of UCLA. Of course, he's got the torn Achilles. And we've been debating this ever since he declared, what should he do? He's decided to stay in the draft. Kobe Brown of Missouri didn't have a good combine and didn't play in the games, which was surprising. He is staying in the draft. Julian Phillips, Tennessee, we mentioned. Adam Flagler, Baylor. Any comments with those guys?
I really like Kobe Brown's game. I think his versatility as a wing that can probably go down and defend fours in the NBA I think regardless of what performance he gave at the combine, he's somebody that's going to be heavily looked at end of first, early second.
I don't see that. I don't see that.
Personally,
he's the size of the wing. He's the size of a wing and the athleticism of a 7-footer. And so I'm wondering where he's going to play.
He's a 4.
Okay. I think he'll be picked in the second round, but I not first. No, I'd be shocked. Jake, you had comment?
Yeah, I think Adam Flagler's interesting as an undrafted guy. I don't think he'll get picked, but maybe, him also having to go back and play behind guys at Baylor and then play a fifth year too for a guy that's not going to test like crazy well, the age. So I don't know, like I'm kind of on the fence with Flagler's if he should have come back or declared, but good offensive player, can shoot very, very well from every level of the court. Like, maybe this is an undrafted, like, Exhibit 10 guy that could be interesting.
I can see Flagler getting signed to a two-way somewhere. Yeah. He could definitely. That's one thing that he's still going to combine.
The hell out of it,
yeah. Two-way, I think, is in the cards for him. A couple of guys who I wonder if they are two ways in the cards for them is Amon Franklin of Virginia, who's never quite lives up to his potential, and same thing could be said for Chase Audige of Northwestern, who I believe is Defensive Player of the Year and Big Ten this year. Offensively, he's kind of hit or miss. But both of those guys are getting up there in years, so maybe they just figured, time is not going to be any better. Though I think with Audige's case, he was at least, by being Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten, I think he was starting to make a name for himself for people outside the Big Ten. If you watch the Big Ten, we've known who he has been for the last 3 years. But, yeah. So a couple of guys. The next guy is no surprise he's in the draft, and that is Marcus Bagley, Marvin's younger brother. Of course, he had all kinds of troubles at Arizona State with injuries and discipline issues. Once considered a possible first-round pick. Now I don't see him getting drafted. Any comments on Marcus Bagley?
No way he's not getting drafted.
All right. And then one guy I just realized was in the draft, and I thought he had another year, was Miles Norris of UCSB. I forget what team he worked out with this past week, but I'm like, Miles Norris, what, is in the draft? And apparently he is, but I'm not sure why, because he only played 4 years and sat out one transfer year. So he should have another year, but he didn't declare as an early entry. So I'm not sure why he's in this draft, but he is. So he will show up the next time we update our draft board. Miles Norris will definitely be on it. I think he falls in that same range as Franklin and Audige, as probably not even a two-way contract guy, but a guy who's definitely going to probably be considered for Exhibit 10. So any comments on Franklin, Audige, Bagley, or Norris?
Not to me.
All right. So now we'll move on to the portal. And it's been a while since we in between shows, so we got some guys to talk about here. Caleb Love, I think we may have caught that on the last show, going to Arizona. I think Jake may have reported that. Might have been the day he announced. And of course, we just talked about Cam Spencer going to UConn, but anyone will have any comments on Caleb Love going to Arizona, where he'll probably take over for basically the position that Courtney Ramey played, I would think.
Interesting backcourt, him and Jalen Bradley.
And the kid, the holdover, the 17-year-old.
Boswell.
Yeah. Boswell.
He was good last
year. Very
year.
good, yeah. So, yeah, with Brad, it almost seems like there's not enough room unless they play a 3-guard offense, and maybe that's what they do around Ballo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Saw Johnson there, too.
Yeah, and of course, Pella Larson pulled out of the draft. Okay, so we all agree, I think, that Cam Spencer was a huge pickup for UConn and a huge loss for Rutgers. Let's talk about another huge pickup by the team that may be winning the transfer portal battle in terms of who they've gained and who they lost, which I haven't really lost anybody, and that's Villanova. Jake, why don't you run with Tyler Burton, Richmond? We've talked about him. He was a guest on our show last summer, and we talked about Tyler quite a bit. And he finally announced that he's going to be a Wildcat in Philly.
Yeah. This is as good a pickup as you can make at this juncture. Like, you have guys like Kamwa and Kaluma and Great Nelson that are still out there. Maybe some guys become available, like the Cam Spencer, very, very late. And Tyler Burton was the same exact case. Announces he's going to transfer, pulls out of the draft. Villanova hops right on him. He's going to be able to play some 3 and some 4. He's going to give them another big wing. I mean, you can play TJ Bamba, Hakeem Hart, and Tyler Burton and just interchange them. That's what the beauty of this team is. You're going to be able to play a bunch of big time athletes on the floor at the same time. And he can shoot. He was a really good scorer. He's going to stick his nose in there and rebound, with something that Villanova struggled a little bit last year with their lack of size.
Plays above the rim.
Yeah, I mean, he can rip and dunk on you. I saw him put a dunk on LaSalle. It was like it just kind of comes out of nowhere. He's actually like a very explosive athlete at times, where it kind of surprises you. But really, really good pickup. He didn't shoot too well from 3 this year, but he shot over 36% from 3 his sophomores, juniors, was below 30% this year. And part of that is, he jacked up way more, almost 2 more attempts a game. It's more of the offense in his hands. That great senior class, Nathan Kao, Frank Bolden, Jacob Gilliard, they were all gone last year. And it was Tyler Burton who was kind of running the show. So I think he'll step into a really good situation at Villanova for a very good team. And you're absolutely right, Rich. When you bring in TJ Bamba, Hakeem Hart, they got Lance Ware to get an actual big on the team, and now you bring in Tyler Burton. Completely different from what you're used to seeing Villanova do. Usually they just recruit, develop. There's not many transfers in the Jay Wright era. You had Joe Cremo come from Albany. You had Caleb Daniels, Eric Pascal. There's not many guys that do it. Not many guys transfer in. And this year they knocked it out of the park. They're getting along with the times. 4 very good transfers. Villanova will be very good next year when you add in Justin Moore coming back, Eric Dixon coming back. It's going to be a very good team.
Agreed. Another team that's been raking in the transfers is Ole Miss, and Alan Flanagan, who was on the show last summer, a good all-around wing, and Jalen Murray, a guard from St. Peter's, are the latest additions. And Ernest Udo, who was thinking about going to Villanova before Lance Ware signed, is going to TCU to give them a legitimate shot blocking, rebounding center to go along with the rest of the attack. He will basically be taking over what role Eddie Lampkin served last year. And of course we have Kamwa going to Michigan. Any comments on those guys?
Yeah, is Jamarian and Usa going to play together?
I asked that specifically to their SID. I didn't get an answer, but I can't see that happening.
They are loaded. If they keep that, they got the kid from Brandon Murray from Georgetown.
Yeah.
From ASU, Nunez, I believe they are, and then of course the kid from St. Peter's,
Jalen Murray.
And Flanagan, I like a lot too.
Yeah.
Beard came in and
he's brought in a lot of guys.
They are going to smother teams. They have 2 huge centers, and then how about this? Booney, you brought up a good point. Look at the wings. They get Alan Flanagan, Murray, and then you have Matt Morrell coming back too. Like, you have athleticism.
I mean Murray's extremely athletic. Flanagan's athletic.
Your potential starting 5 is going to be Jalen Murray. What's his name? The returner coming back. You just said his name. I don't know.
Morrell. Matt Morrell.
You got Morrell. You got
Brandon Murray. Flanagan.
You got the 2 big guys that you can play together, depending on how that goes. But regardless, even if they don't, you still have Brandon Murray coming off the bench.
Well, you also have Bakefield, who's a shooting 4 who can rebound.
I mean, is it unprecedented? Is it too early or a little ridiculous to talk about them as possibly national championship contenders?
Well, it's a lot of things to gel, and the one thing that they don't have is, Murray. I don't know if they have a point guard.
They got 2 of them.
I know, but I mean, really, to win the national championship, you want a point guard you trust, and I don't know if there's either of them right now have my trust to call them national championship, but I think they're
I know. But how many teams out there really have that? There's not a lot.
Kansas.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course. Yeah, but
Villanova.
Villanova does.
Yeah.
They're
They're definitely going to be successful in SEC play.
Oh, definitely. They're already in the hunt for the title.
Yeah, I mean that is on paper a team that's going to be very successful in the SEC style of play, which is all about big athletic wings and a large interior presence. You can get away without the guard play in SEC play, but I mean, talking championship level, you need that point guard that can find the control and the chaos of having that many bigs.
When they play Tennessee, it's probably going to be lower scoring than your girls team you coach, Cam.
Yeah. It's all about defense. SEC basketball, baby. All defense all day.
8-5 final.
Cam is a Tennessee graduate. Is a Tennessee graduate, by the way.
Is that right, huh?
Yeah. So we have to limit our Tennessee jokes now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you can bring it all. We deserve most of it.
All right. Speaking of point guards you can trust, what do you think about Toledo's Ray J. Dennis going to Baylor? Ray J was also, I guess, a lot of people in this section were guests on the show. Was a guest on the show about a month or so ago. He is headed off to Baylor. Up to the task?
I think so. Should be a good perimeter there next year. They're getting Jaden Nunn from VCU as well. Dale Bonner left. You'd Keontae George leave. Flagler's gone, but Langston Love is still there too. So I think it's still gonna be a solid group there. Still gonna be a solid group of guards. They got to get back to playing better defense. They're gonna get that with Nunn. They need Ray J. Dennis to help provide that with them. They need to get back to the good Baylor perimeter defense that they had from that championship team in the year after.
Right. And they still have some good bigs left over, including a Jonathan Chachua, who should be healthier this year. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. All right. Speaking of bigs, Isaiah Miranda, one of the weirder cases this year, he transferred he started his freshman year at NC State around Christmas time, didn't play this year for NC State. He redshirted, then put his name in the draft without playing, and then put his name in the portal. So he just grabbed lunch and a cup of coffee at NC State, and now he's off to Oklahoma State. And he replaces Cisse, who we're talking about going to Ole Miss. So much needed new body for Oklahoma State, who's been losing a lot of guys to the portal. All right. So St. John's, the last pieces of their clearinghouse have signed. Andre Cabello, the great playmaking, dynamic guard, but also he's an enigma with all kinds of things, the way he plays the game. And I guess there were some off-court issues this year at St. John's, but he's going to Southern Miss. A little bit of surprise there. A guy who, is really a high-level power six type of point guard, but maybe he's just, I don't know, needs to be out of the limelight. And also his teammate David Jones, who played great for DePaul, but didn't play as well for St. John's. He's going to Memphis. He's a big scoring wing, can rebound, block some shots, can shoot. I really like David Jones. I think he's one of the more underrated players in college basketball. Any comments about Curbelo or David Jones?
Curbelo's going to need a waiver, but if he plays this year, can't believe I'm saying this because I believe St. John's might be was going to be good last year, and then the year at Illinois, last year, he just became a turnover machine in that Houston game and that whole season. But I think this is going to work. I like Jay Ladner. The Southern Miss team was the 1 seed in the Sun Belt last year.
Yep.
I think this is going to work. And I think Jay Ladner is going to get Andre Curbelo back on track. Might be erratic. Might be a lot of turnovers, but in the Sun Belt, it'll put up numbers.
Yeah. Curbelo is talented. He's just his own worst enemy. And I really hope he turns it around because he's really fun to watch. All right. So a couple more here. Connor Vanover, the 7'5" center, played at Arkansas, played at Oral Roberts, and now he's going to Missouri. Not sure how that's going to work. Missouri likes to run and gun, and Connor Vanover is not what you would call an end-to-end center, but he can shoot. He can shoot some. So, and Booney, what do you think here? You're a Missouri fan. How do you see Vanover fitting in at Missouri?
You know what? You said it. I like Vanover a lot. I think he's a hell of a player. But you got to also remember, Oral Roberts got up and down the floor as well. You know?
That's true. That's true. That is true.
Pretty well. I thought Missouri would be his first choice, but it matched a little bit how Oral Roberts played, and I like him a lot as a player. Missouri doesn't have a whole lot though next year. Any word on Isaiah Mobley?
Oh, well, we'll get to him. We'll get to Mosley.
Okay.
There was an announcement yesterday, last night, actually.
Wow, I just brought that up, right? Okay.
All right. So moving on with the transfers, Zion Pullian, who we previously talked about from Cal Riverside, pulled out of the draft and is headed to Florida. Florida's been collecting some good pieces in the portal. And Jemiah Williams, who sat out last year, former Temple player, is going to Illinois. And Mike Shavajance is transferring from Dayton. He pulled out of the draft, but we're just not sure where he's headed. Jake, you want to comment on any of these guys?
Yeah, I'll talk about Temple guy Jeremiah Williams. So he got hurt last year, tore up his knee right before the season. And look, Payman Lipsey played well in his spot. Local kid, he's from Ames, Iowa, but he played well as a freshman. He put up numbers, was good defending, was good running offense, and it didn't seem like Jeremiah Williams was getting that spot back. So he's going to go to Illinois, and he's going to have the chance to play. I will say that they bring in Justin Harmon. They're going to have from Utah Valley. They have TJ Shannon coming back, so he's going to have the opportunity to play. But my worry is he hasn't played in a while, and the last time he played, he was playing in the AAC. And he's a guy that can't shoot well, but gives you a nice size for a point guard, defends very well, can play make a little bit and handle the ball for you. The shooting's a concern for me though, because this Illinois team's been inconsistent the last couple of years. He's going to get time to play, like I said, but they need a steadying presence there. I wonder how much he's going to hit the floor if they need him to handle the ball and shoot.
And where do you think Mongolia Mike's headed?
I think an interesting fit here for a guy that's so raw like he is. I think Memphis is a good spot for him. Go play for a point guard in Penny. Go have a very good pro point guard, college or pro point guard. Teach you how to play the game. And have all those amenities at your disposal. You're definitely going. I don't care what the deal is. These guys, these you can't tell me these international guys aren't getting paid in some way. They got to. They'll get money there. They'll get all that good stuff in Memphis. But
we don't
play for a point guard.
Some of them might have United States citizenship too. So I don't know if he does, but if they do, then they're okay.
Yeah. But I think Memphis good spot for him.
Yeah, you're speaking my mind, Jake. I think if I were him, I would probably go Memphis. But I think Indiana can't be completely called out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they picked up Kalel Ware, right, from Oregon this year?
Yes.
In the transfer portal. So that's a team that's, they've got a little bit of flux, but there's some talent there that I think Mike could contribute to and really fit in well, bring a little bit of spacing to fit in with that big lineup.
All right, so last week we touched on this a bit, but Booney did some research for us, but couldn't be on the show last week, so I wanted to see if he wanted anything to add. But in the interim, I spoke to Steve Neff, who's in operations at the G League. And for example, he is one of the guys who came up with the concept for the G League Elite Camp. That was his idea. And basically what I ran over with him, I basically told him that we often, talk about who should stay in college, who should, go into the draft and things like that. But the structures of the contracts are changing and in different things are changing. For example, there's now going to be 3 two-way contracts this year. And so I kind of wanted to get his sense of it. And I'll tell you what, from a G League perspective, he made it clear that they are in competition with Europe and college basketball. And I'm not saying he said that. I'm just saying from just talking with him, you could tell he was saying, it makes sense for these guys to come to the G League. It's his opinion that they're going to get better training. They're going to learn how to play in an NBA-style system. And now that the money is going to be there. And so I know from talking about someone in the Spanish ABC, which is the best league in Europe outside of EuroLeague. So EuroLeague is what they call a super league. So what they do is they take some of the best teams in Spain, Germany, France, and all over the world, and they combine them to form a super league. So they're like the best of the best. And Spain, behind EuroLeague, is the second best league. And someone was there, I was talking to them about a kind of like a fringe NBA prospect. Oh, I know who it was. It was the kid who played for Ignite, or not Ignite last year, Overtime Elite, the little guard. I believe he was from France. He ended up in the Knicks system. He wasn't drafted, but they signed him to a 10-day, and he played some in the G League. They ended up cutting him. But anyway, he was the best player at Overtime Elite, Overtime Elite last year. But he didn't get drafted. And I asked the guy who was an executive on one of the Spanish teams, how much would he make if he played in, because Overtime Elite, I think the minimum salary there is $100,000 a year. So I asked him how much would he made if he stayed in Spain, and he told me probably around 40, 50,000. So he clearly made a financial decision, basically to double how much money he was going to make by going to Overtime Elite. But what I was saying is basically he was saying, and I asked him about the G League International Draft, which is coming up after the NBA draft. And I said, I don't really know if I see the purpose here. He said, well, the purpose is maybe you might not make as much money in the G League, because now these guys are going to get standard G League contracts, which are around 40,000. Okay. So good chance that some of these guys are making more than 40,000. And I said, well, why would they do that? And he goes, well, you get training, you get closer to the NBA, you get trained to play in the style that's played in the NBA. And so that was his argument. And he made the point, when you're in Europe, a lot of times these kids are playing for really, really good teams that are in playoff contention. So, for example, Victor Wembanyama is going to be starting in the French finals coming up this Saturday. And so he's playing 30 minutes a game. But a lot of these NBA prospects are only playing 15 minutes, 18 minutes a night. And he's saying, you come to the G League, you're going to play 30 minutes a night. So that was his argument. But basically, from what I could see, is the biggest change is the fact that we're going to have another two-way contract slot. So, Booney, what did your research tell you in terms of, whether a guy should come out? How big of a deal is it, to be a first-round pick over a second-round pick, over a two-way guy, over or Exhibit 10?
So basically, on the first round, where you get picked is already determined, right? It's tied to two things. It's tied to the salary cap for the season, right? And where the player is drafted. So once the salary cap for the season is set, a rookie scale is formed for every single first round pick. And the players can sign from anywhere from 80% to 120%. For example, Victor's going to get the number one pick, obviously. He can make anywhere from $7.9 million to $11.9 million. And that's based on the scale, which for the 2023-24 season is set at $9.9 million. The 15th pick, for example, it's set at $3.3 million, right? So the 15th pick can sign anywhere from $2.7 million to $4 million. The 30th pick is $1.9 million. They can sign anywhere from 1.5 to 2.3. The first 2 years of the deal are fully guaranteed, and the teams have options for the third and fourth year. Now, where the big change is the second round pick, right? Can be anywhere from 1 to 4 years, either fully guaranteed or not at all. Here's the big thing. So let's say the Pacers select Kobe Brown with the 32nd pick, right? Go to Cam's pick there. And they have a good feeling about him, right? they will need to sign him to no more than 3 years to retain him as a restricted free agent. Okay, if they sign him to 4 years or more with no options, Brown will be an unrestricted free agent. This is how the Mavericks lost Jalen Brunson. Okay, if they sign him to 3 years as a restricted free agent, when the Knicks made that offer to him, the Mavericks would have had a chance to match. Okay? That's how they lost. The big deal is the two-way contracts, and how this is different is you were paid half the NBA minimum salary per game for the amount of days you were in the G League, the amount of days you were in the NBA. So if you were in the G League, you're making the G League salary. The days you're in the NBA, you're making that. That's changed now. So if you are signed to a two-way contract, you are making half the NBA salary, which is 500 and something.
So you mean the veteran minimum?
You're making, correct. You're making half of that, 508,891, right? If they are not more than 45 days in the NBA team, they're not able to compete in the playoffs. The big thing is where everyone's thinking, well, why is somebody going to take an exhibit 10 contract, right? Rather than go back to college. A lot of these guys are going for the exhibit 10 contract in order to get that $500,000. For example, the Miami Heat did something with Max Strus for them, right? He was able to go to camp, impress, and get the two-way contract. Now, why does this make sense for an NBA team? You're going to pay the veteran minimum to somebody who is a 10th, 11th guy on the bench, who is most likely a journeyman, not going to contribute much, where you could get a prospect that you see has a nice upside as a Max Strus and sign him to half as much as you'd be paying that veteran. Right. So it makes sense for both teams in that type of sense, right? That's the big thing with the Exhibit 10.
But here's the thing with Exhibit 10, they can basically cut you.
Correct. There's no guarantee.
At any time, and the most you're going to get is like 110,000 or 110,000, right?
You won't even get that. So in order to get it's 90,500 is the max you'll get, which is a $50,000 bonus.
Oh, that bonus has gone up to 70.
Isn't it up to 70 now?
70 to 75, yeah. That's in the new collective bargaining agreement.
Then yes, you are correct. You have to spend 60 days plus with the G League affiliate.
Yeah, it happens around when they do that thing. What do they call it? The G League Winter Festival or whatever. At that point, if you're still around after that, then you get the bonus. But if you're not, then you don't, and then you only get probably prorated out of 40,000. So
yes,
yeah. So you could maybe make $10,000 on an Exhibit 10, and that's about it. That's where it gets scary to me. I mean, because the best case scenario is like around 110,000.
If you don't get signed to a two-way.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously the last thing is the G League contract, which are select contracts, right? The select contracts are going to go guys like Scoot Henderson, Jalen Green, for example. Scoot Henderson signed the junior in high school, 2 years for $1 million. And he played one, right? He was a senior in high school, then he played 1 year and now he went to the draft. The G League base salary is $40,500. So those are kind of the big changes right there as far as what's going on, and the minimum, as far as half the minimum, league minimum, at 500,000, I think is what a lot of these guys that were thinking, hey, why is he going in the draft? Why isn't he staying in school? That's what they're shooting for.
Right. Because a guy like Tubelis, who's not getting any NIL, who probably will get a two-way contract, is now looking at, well, I could get nothing, maybe be player of the year, and maybe that would appeal to some, or I can go into the draft and get $500,000 this year.
Yeah, and also look at like somebody like Tubelis, right? Okay, so Tubelis said, okay, I can go back to school, be player of the year, and my upside is getting picked 23rd in the first round, right? Now you look at the scale, and 23rd in the first round is something like 2.4 million, right? 2.6 million, which they can pay you 80% up. It's still a good salary, but you know, you're looking at a two-way at 500,000, possibly sign and possibly get drafted in the second round and get a three-year deal. Let's say worth, 4.5 or something, whatever it may be.
Right. All right, we're going to close out the notebook with some other college news. Actually, this isn't college news. This is more G League news, but it involves college. And that's Matas Buzelis, who's considered a top 10. He's an 18-year-old from Lithuania. He's considered a top 10 pick in next year's draft. And Ron Holland, who's considered the #1 high school recruit. They are both going to go to elite and get one of those special contracts that Booney talked about, where you're probably making at least $1 million a year. Another interesting piece coming out of high school news is Elliot, I think it's Cadu, right? Or am I saying that right? I can't hear you, Cam. Cado. Who was considered one of the top rising prospects. He's considered now in this class 12th overall after reclassifying. He is a point guard. He is committed to North Carolina, and he will be going there this year as a freshman. So he is a 12th overall high school recruit. Also, Jacob Patrick, who played at MHP Reason this year. He is on our draft board. You can't see him. He's in the 300s, but he has committed to play for Virginia Commonwealth this year. So he should be a big addition for VCU. Any comments about these guys coming and going?
I had two things. So number one, I told you Ron Holland was going to the G League. I thought that was maybe go to Arkansas, but I done told you he was going to the G League. And second, not only about Elliot Cadeau going to UNC, but because of that, Simeon Wilcher asked for a release from his national letter of intent. He won't be going to North Carolina. And Rich, we didn't have a St. John's update this week. Well, I'm giving you one now because Slick Rick.
Yeah, we did with Curbelo and
yeah. But I'm talking about guys coming in.
Right.
Rick Pitino is either he's already done one or he's going to in the very near future bring in Simeon Wilcher for a visit. I don't know if he's going to have to cut somebody and release somebody from a scholarship. I don't know if Dennis Jenkins is going.
Redshirt somebody, perhaps?
Unless it's Brady Dunlap, I think the only possibility here is that Dennis Jenkins doesn't get a waiver because he's a two-time transfer because he came in. He went to Iona, and then he went from Iona in 2 straight years. So maybe he doesn't get a waiver, and then that fills a need for a guard. But like Rick picking up, he did the same thing with Mackenzie Mbako. Even though nothing happened with it, he got released from. He asked for a release of his letter with Duke. Rick Pitino was right on it. So Elliot Cadeau in, Simeon Wilcher out. Looks like Slick Rick might be reaping the benefits.
All righty. And lastly, our boy who we've talked a lot about, tried to get an interview with over the last couple of years, that's Isaiah Mosley. He's an explosive, dynamic scorer, but has had some trouble at Missouri State and more trouble at Missouri and hasn't played much, didn't play much at all this year, unfortunately. Isaiah Mosley made the decision last night to leave Missouri and turn pro. Now, I had been waiting all spring to see Isaiah Mosley's name go into the portal. It never happened, and that was curious to me, but now he's decided to turn pro. Now, what does this mean? He is not going to be in this year's draft class. That means he could play for G League. He could play for Overtime Elite. He could play in Europe. And he will be in next year's draft. So Isaiah Mosley has 1 year to rehabilitate his reputation. We will see. Any comments about Isaiah Mosley?
I like Isaiah Mosley. I like him a lot. But I think the best way I can describe him is a flake, right? We kept waiting for him to come back to Missouri and join what I felt was a good core with Brown and Hodges over there. And he came back, played a couple games, and we saw them be a different team. Then he's gone. And then, okay, he's going to be back next week.
I think there was a death in the family there.
Yes.
But then long after that, he was just sitting on the bench or not at the games at all.
It's just, it's hard to say. I think he's a heck of a player. We'll see. But who knows? When he was at Missouri, it's been a long time. What's he done when he's been on his own? So I don't know.
Yeah. I wish him the best. Maybe we'll finally get an interview with him and see where that goes. All right. So that wraps up the notebook. Jake, do you want to stick around for the mailbag, or it's mostly draft questions?
No, that's all right. I got to head out.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
So all right. So Jake, we'll say goodnight to you.
I will see you tomorrow, though.
See you tomorrow, Jake.
Yes.
Yep. See you tomorrow. Cam, nice to meet you.
Thank you, Jake.
Yep.
Doc is now with us. Jake took off, and we're going to do our NBA chat, and we'll kind of got things all different order here. So I guess the first thing we'll talk about is, Boston was thumped in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And I was thinking at the time that Joe Mazzulla should be fired, but apparently he isn't going anywhere, according to Brad Stevens. And now the Celtics are even bolstering his staff by hiring assistants such as Sam Cassell from the Sixers. So I'm going to start with you, Doc. Are you surprised Mazzulla still has a job? And what do you think about Cassell going to the Celtics?
Not surprised, only because it was his first year and there was still a lot going on with the team. They still made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They forced a Game 7. So you could say they had a step back. They definitely did. I mentioned they never played the same with the new coach, even though their records say they played the same, but on the court, they was not the same team at all. What really, I think what made him stayed was that Boston they made a bad decision in firing the coach before over what happened with the management and the allegations. We still don't know the full story yet, right. But I think they made a mistake with that. So it's like, well, we appointed this guy as a head coach after firing a good coach who's only here for 2 years. I think he was there for 1 year, I believe. Now we have this new coach. We can't fire another coach right now. So I think they give him another year to test the waters. And I think after next season, they don't win the championship, he'll be out of there.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm not surprised that he's keeping his job, but I'm surprised at just how some of these franchises go about things. So he keeps his job, but Budenholzer gets fired. It's just that's kind of what has me a little bit in questions for what they're doing. So, not surprised in keeping his job, but I was very surprised by Budenholzer and the kind of comparison for me.
Yeah, I think he got tossed into a crappy situation too.
Yeah,
his the previous coach comes in. He builds a culture. He gets the respect of the guys. They make this playoff run, and all of a sudden, that's just over. And it sounds like, too, originally they were going to hire, what's his name? He ended up taking the Utah job before the firing actually came down. And people will call him second row Joe because it's really what he was before he got the gig. He was a deep assistant. And I mean, you got to give the guy a little bit of time to maybe develop into something. I mean, he was truly thrown into it.
Yeah. Whether it would be fair to him or not, I'm thinking the guy's 34 years old. I thought he looked out of his depth in the playoffs. And I don't know. For the Celtics, this core, the clock is ticking. And so if you don't want to start over, I think you might want to bring in somebody who's, instead of, trial by fire, I think you might want to bring in somebody who knows what they're doing. I would have fired him. But all right. So now let's go on to the other critical issue for the Celtics, which is Jaylen Brown. He is eligible. He's in the last year of his contract and eligible to receive a 5-year, $295 million Supermax extension this summer. What are the Celtics? I mean, his name has been thrown about for seemingly forever in trades. Is Jaylen Brown part of the problem, or is he part of the solution? What do you think the Celtics are going to do with Jaylen Brown? Doc?
Well, one, it's a couple of teams that's been tough predicament. Celtics is one, and the Milwaukee Bucks is the second team. So as we talk about the Celtics, I stay on the Celtics. Well, Jaylen Brown, options to go other places is there, of course, but Boston can't lose him for free because it'll be starting over. So they will have to either pay him that Supermax or find a team that's willing to trade like a star for a star. You can't really trade Jaylen Brown for role players only because their team already has role players. So it's like you can't get more role players on top of role players. You need another star, and I think that's going to be their main problem. So unless they find a team that's willing to trade star for star, I don't really count Paul George as a star anymore. But like I said, that's an example, or him for Dame. I don't think Portland would do that. So it would be tough. So I think you got to give him that Supermax. They will be stuck with that two-man core, and they just have to find a solution.
Right, but in your opinion, I mean, if you're running the Celtics, do you think Jaylen Brown is part of the problem or part of the solution?
Goes hand in hand. He didn't have the same playoff year he had last season when he went to the finals. Right. But Jason Tatum was terrible again. Right. Honestly, Jason Tatum. I always say this. People want to blame, same thing with the Sixers situation. You could blame the second star all you want. Okay, he doesn't have handles. You could blame Harden, he doesn't show up. Whatever. The main star got to be the best player on the court every game, and that Jason Tatum was not that. So I'll put more blame on Jason Tatum. You can't blame the second guy when the first guy didn't come through. So no, I don't think he's a problem. His handles been bad since day one rookie year. His handles hasn't just got bad this season. His handles always been bad. So people just it's easy to blame the second guy because the first guy's always beloved in the organization, but you got to blame the first guy.
I agree. Any other thoughts on Jaylen Brown?
I mean, Rich, you were talking about the clock might be ticking on this group. It might already be ringing. I mean, it could be over. We talked loosely about the new CBA, and we were looking at it from sort of the young prospect perspective, but it's going to make it borderline impossible to have two max guys because the penalties are just so high. So, I mean, it's more than just getting Jaylen Brown back. It's, okay, well, we can't re-sign Grant Williams, who Joe Maz gave up on in the playoffs, but he still had a big role.
Right.
And they're going to have to seriously think about whether or not they really need Malcolm Brogdon. Because, I mean, his minutes disappeared.
Well, he got hurt. So
yeah, and it's still you see a lot of guys playing through those injuries. And
he did, but he had a partially torn ligament in the shooting elbow. So
yeah, but still, I mean, like the issue is that team thrives on depth and ball movement, and so they're really gonna have to look and decide whether or not it's worth it to sacrifice the depth to keep Brown and Tatum together. And with their playoff runs, it's hard to argue against it. But at the same time, they just haven't been able to get over that hump.
Right.
Maybe it's worth exploring sign and trade options. I think Portland could maybe be convinced on that front. Just see how Jaylen Brown fits as a primary option. But I mean, it's hard to find partners for that kind of stuff.
Right. So I'm going to come back to you, Doc, because the Sixers made a move since we were last on and hired Nick Nurse as the head coach. Is this a move you like or not?
Like I said about the coaching, to my friends and everyone, the coaching to me doesn't really matter in Philadelphia. I said this since we had Brent Brown, even though I felt like Brent Brown was a bad coach. Doc Rivers is ranked top 15 coach of all time according to the NBA. And now we got Nick Nurse. There's no difference, okay? It's just all of this is going to be different systems, different techniques, but the team still can get out the second round, okay? You know why? Because Embiid isn't playing superstar. So the coaching, I always say the top coaches to me are all kind of like near each other. You can make arguments for different coaches, but come on, you got to look at their team. Their teams matter and stars matter. Who, like Steve Kerr is looked at as a great coach, but he's playing with a unique star in Steph Curry. Like there's no other Steph Curry we ever seen. You know, so I feel like at a certain level, coaching, I don't know, it's not gonna be that big of a difference. Nick Nurse, I mean, he won a championship with Kawhi Leonard. Never really did anything after that. Honestly, I don't think Toronto even made the playoffs this year. So I don't know. Nick Nurse is cool.
No, they were in the play-in. They were in the play-in.
Yeah, so Nick Nurse is cool. I mean, he had a solid Toronto teams, and other than the year with Kawhi, he didn't win a championship. And you know, Kawhi makes a big difference. And you know,
a healthy one, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Nick Nurse is cool. I'm not mad about it. I feel like Nick Nurse. We lost Doc Rivers, and we got another coach that people say is good. Is that going to be over the hump for the Sixers? As everybody thinking, no. That's not going to be the over a hump move. The Sixers got to make major moves, so it's cool. It's nice.
Gotcha.
Something that worries me about Nurse as a fit is that he plays like 6 players by choice. Like even regular season, it's like, do they have anybody else on the bench?
Well, no, I don't know if that was that absolutely. He was bitching about the fact that team didn't make a move to enhance their guard situation. They didn't really have any options for backup guards.
Backup, but I mean, that's the whole roster. They went 6 deep for like 2 seasons.
Right, but look at the alternatives. Look at who they could have played. They don't really have. That's the problem. The way that team was built.
I mean, like, does Denver really want to be playing Christian Brown right now in the finals? Probably not. I mean, you had a good game last night, but you gotta be able to fit in guys, especially regular season, just to get guys rest.
Yeah,
you know,
most definitely.
But I think.
Go ahead.
I think he's the thing that I like about the fit is that he's a really experimental coach.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
Defense. Yeah, I mean, he'll mix in zone like Spoelstra will. He'll switch up the offense night to night just because, or to take advantage of a good mismatch. So I think that over Doc is super traditional, old school X's and O's.
Yeah.
Like it's just pick and roll until everybody's, you know, you can't roll no more. But Nurse will mix in some more off-ball play. At the same time, I just want to see a team that legitimately leans on Embiid's post skills and his skills.
Well, whose fault's that? That's not. I don't think that's the coach's fault.
It's not the coach.
Huh?
You've got to design the offense around. Hey,
well, I totally Doc and I totally agree with you, but we don't believe that's the way he wants to play.
Doesn't want to play like that. That's not a coach. I'm telling you, that's not a coach. You think I know Doc Rivers wanting Embiid to play in the post because that's Doc Rivers' game. And honestly, I understand we say the pick and roll, but Embiid never really ran the pick and roll. He did more of a pick and pop. Like if I set the screen, just give me the ball, and then I'm gonna be like Kobe Bryant and do this fadeaway. Like Embiid, listen, it's Embiid style. It's hard to coach Embiid, and I understand that's what I said about Nick Nurse. Everybody touches the ball. That offense is not going to work with Embiid because Embiid wants the ball automatic. It's like he's not like a Jokic where everybody could touch the ball and that's not his game.
He sticks the ball when he gets the ball, it sticks there.
Yeah, he just wants the ball, and that's why I'm saying Nick Nurse offense, it worked. It definitely worked in Toronto because all those guys kind of was the same. It was always forwards that kind of all did the same thing, honestly. And they had Fred VanVleet with a shooter. They didn't really have a true point guard on the team. That's why I think Fred VanVleet might come to Philly and Harden's out. But I don't know. We'll see. I think Philly got roster-wise got to change a lot first. And hopefully Nick Nurse handpicked the guys he wants and then gets Embiid and has Embiid buy into what he wants.
Yeah. I just think that is the role of the coach in today's league. It's like our team is more successful when you do this. So do that. Like that's what I want from a coach. Like,
yeah, but good luck doing that with guys like Kyrie and Embiid.
I think Embiid also be a little more coachable than Kyrie.
It's hard to win when you have two guys on the team that demand the ball, that have to have the ball in their hand. To be honest, like Doc, you talk about Fred VanVleet. I believe the Sixers would have had a more successful season with Fred VanVleet than James Harden.
That's not true.
I don't think it would matter. I don't think it would have mattered.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's not true. Harden won 2 games in that playoffs by himself. And B got injured. Harden won those games.
But Harden also lost about 3 games. I mean,
Harden did not lose those 3 games. That's not
Embiid.
true.
Buddy, the Sixers offense is to give Embiid the ball around the elbow, wait 5 seconds till he decides to do something, and by now the shot clock's down to 4, and he either forces up a fadeaway or he gives it to Harden. Harden has to do something in 4 seconds.
Yeah.
See, but the stats will back up that Embiid at that nail is a very advantageous position for an offense. Because
I could also show you stats where he doesn't run the floor. He doesn't get offensive rebounds. He doesn't shoot very well.
Rebound at all, though.
He's horrible. He's horrible in isolation.
Stats is lies, man. I know his stats say he averaged 9 rebounds, but he's not a good rebounder. The best rebound in Sixers is in Brooklyn right now. The problem, and also James Harden made Maxey better because Maxey not a point guard either. So when Maxey went to the bench, Maxey struggled because he wasn't playing with Harden. Maxey had to get back in the starting line to play with Harden to kill again and get his fast break points to even put in the average 20 points this season because Maxey was terrible coming up the bench not playing with Harden. So I don't believe the Fred VanVleet thing at all. I just don't. It doesn't. Harden did his job to me, honestly. I didn't expect Harden to win 2 games for them. They only won 3, and B didn't win 1 game for Philly, honestly, because the game and B kind of played good. Maxey won that game technically, but I don't think Harden lost them any games at all.
No. In fact, in Game 7, he didn't really start to struggle. He started to struggle after Embiid built them a nice big hole by missing a bunch of shots and not getting any rebounds. And then Harden felt like all the pressure in the world, and he was getting the ball with the shot clock under 10. And when Embiid decided to not take a shit shot.
Yeah, and I think Harden definitely bought in. If anybody, that's why I think Harden wants to leave because Harden bought into what the Sixers wanted him to do, and that was what Ben Simmons was, facilitate. So that's what Harden said. All right, I'm not going to score like that. I'm going to go let Maxey and Embiid score and try to get Tobias Harris scoring and other guys. So that I think he averaged like 11 assists this year. So he averaged 20-11 or 20-10. I don't know. I don't blame Harden. I just don't blame him.
And this is coming from somebody who never said a good word about James Harden until this year. But everybody jumped on him. He's not the problem. I totally agree with Doc. I never had a good thing to say about James Harden. But James Harden, Doc said it. He did everything they asked him to do. Right.
Can't fault that. And same problem. That's why Ben Simmons ran out. I feel like Ben Simmons did everything they asked him to do. But the problem with Ben Simmons was the only thing he didn't want to do was stay aggressive. So the problem wasn't him shooting jump shots. It was more him not being aggressive and trying to score. So that was the biggest problem. I understand it. But Harden aspect, I feel like he did everything. And when he answered the bell to me. I expect Harden to win 2 games for them. Definitely that game 1 and definitely not that game 4 when he scored 45 back-to-back. 45 in game 1 and 42, I think, in game 4.
All right, let's move on to the Suns, who are in quite the dilemma here. it appears, maybe they even did so today, it looked like they were going to part ways with Chris Paul to save themselves about $30 million, because right now I think they have 6 players under contract and they're still way over the salary cap. And they also hired Frank Vogel. So I'm not very excited about Frank Vogel going to the Suns. I think this team's in trouble.
Wait, Chris Paul hasn't officially left?
Not to my knowledge.
So
maybe he did today. I'm
He got released.
Did he get released?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe, yeah.
So what happened was they originally came out and basically announced the waiver and then stepped it back. And I think people are debating why they would do that. A lot of it looks like they had the option of stretching him, which would have not saved them quite as much money, but it would have also blocked them from the chance of re-signing him. The waiver, if he actually clears waivers, they'll actually have the opportunity to re-sign him for a cheaper contract.
Okay.
And people are kind of speculating that's what's going on. They're kind of measuring to see what Chris Paul's interest is in coming back at all. Right.
Well, I mean, I think at this point in his time, he's got to be like a 6th man,
Totally.
And so the team can't afford to have a $30 million 6th man, but I mean, they need more than just Chris Paul. I think that team's, no bench, over the cap, an aging Kevin Durant.
But man, when they're cooking though, Booker and KD looks like a hell of a combo. If they get Chris Paul off the docket, there's going to be a lot of guys that want to go there. Phoenix is a destination for free agents. People want to play there.
I think their best chance to actually do something is to get something for Ayton. Doc was talking about trading Brown for pieces, and that really wasn't an option for Boston. Well, trading Ayton for pieces is an option for Phoenix.
If I was Phoenix, I think that's definitely going to be a move. I don't think Ayton comes back in this season. So I think Ayton definitely was on the move. I think they tired of him. Honestly, he tired of them too. The relationship is just broken. Stop trying to force. I know Mike Williams is out now, but come on, it's over. Like, just force him out.
Wouldn't that be funny if they traded him to Detroit? Where Monty Williams just got a big contract.
Well, I feel like they should trade him. And if Chris Paul's Wade, I thought he was Wade. I think a person sneaky trying to go over there is James Harden. I think James Harden go to Phoenix.
But he's not going to get the money he wants.
No.
Okay. All right, we're going to skip the next question. We'll save that for a day when Drew is here. I put that one in there for Drew, and so we'll finish up by talking about the finals themselves. We're 3 games in. Denver won last night pretty easily at Miami, so now they lead the series 2-1. Has the series, Doc, has it played out the way you thought, or is it surprised you in some way? And how do you see it finishing up?
I don't know about this series. This whole playoffs is just wacky, isn't it? I don't even know how Miami won after watching game 2. I mean, after watching game 1, I said Miami was going to win just because I picked them in 6, but I didn't really think they was going to win. They wound up winning, so it was just shocking. And then yesterday they lost, so now I guess I got to pick them for game 4. But I don't know. It's not evenly matched, but Miami hasn't been even matched with no team this year, honestly. So I don't know, just a wacky players. I feel like Denver got this in the bag, honestly. But even though I picked Miami 6, I'm just gonna stick with Miami in 6. It's a play of Jimmy though. If that play of Jimmy thing hasn't happened since he got injured, technically. So I mean, he hasn't been dominant. You're not gonna win. If he was dominant and was able to score 40 points, they could definitely win the series. But he's not doing it. So they don't have enough to match Jokic and Murray getting 30 each. Like they don't have nobody to match that.
All right.
Yeah. I think with Jimmy, it's going to be one of those situations where as soon as the season's over, you hear about him going in for some knee surgery, right? Like I think he's more hurt than they're really letting on, and he's just playing through it.
That's said that on Twitter last week.
Yeah. It's been a fun finals for me. Of course, I live in Denver, so it's extra fun.
Oh, you're a Nuggets fan though?
I am, man.
He's wearing a Nuggets jersey. He's wearing one of those.
I just thought he liked Jokic.
I'm more of a Murray guy personally, but I do have a Jokic jersey. But I mean,
I'm gonna ask you a question about Murray off topic. I don't want to argue. I just want to hear your opinion. I always argue with this a lot. Is Jamal Murray a top 5 point guard? Your honest opinion, no fan base.
With Jokic, he can fake it for a month.
I like that answer. I like that answer. He said with Jokic, he can fake it. I like that. That's a great answer to me.
Because I was thinking about this too. Like there was a time period where people were kind of clamoring for him to get traded while he was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like just going off the top of my head, the guys that I would take over him, like without question, I'd take Steph, I'd take Dame. I mean, if you count Luka as a point guard, I would take Luka.
Yeah, I usually don't do that, but people do it. I don't do it.
Yeah,
Who else would take over Murray?
Totally fair, but yeah, I mean, you got a couple guys. You got to take Shea. I think I would probably take Shea over him. And then it's
John Murray.
Ja.
I mean, not with the current issues with Ja. I think that is
I would take
Ja. I would probably take Ja.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, he can fake it for a little bit. They have it's clear. You can look at any statistics you want. You can take the eye test. But him and Jokic together, it's the best 2-man game in the NBA. Like that is the single play that is the most unstoppable, most incapable of being defended in the NBA. Is a Jamal Murray Jokic handoff pick and roll. It's busted.
Booney, let's get you. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to go back to the finals. Booney.
You know what's amazing about Denver is they're literally playing 6 deep, and 2 of their guys last night, and Porter and Caldwell, went 2 of 11 from the floor. Yet they still won in Miami pretty handily. I didn't expect Jamal Murray to play this well. He is playing phenomenal. We thought what we were going to get we're getting what we thought out of Jokic. But Jamal Murray is playing out of this world. And on top of that, we're seeing the physicality of Denver. I mean, they out-rebounded Miami by 25 last night, which I thought was
crazy,
unreal. When I would, decide Jokic give the physicality more to Miami. So they're impressive. Jamal Murray's out of this world. They both had triple-doubles last night. They haven't been a deep team all year. Their 5 is good, but when you don't have a deep team, your top players have to play, and they're playing.
Yeah.
Here's a stat for you. It is the only time in NBA history where 2 players on the same team have had a 30-point triple-double.
Yeah.
Playoff, regular season, doesn't matter. Only time ever.
That's crazy.
And did they sit the fourth quarter? I mean, till the game was decided? I mean, that was kind of weird, too.
They played 44, 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was crazy how much they played. Yeah. All right, so is there any debate here? Anyone see anyone other than Jokic winning MVP except for maybe Murray?
No, Jokic is getting it. It's politics. The same way why Jimmy Butler won the Eastern Conference Finals championship
over Caleb Martin.
Yeah, it's the same. You can't give it. You know why you can't give it to Murray? One, and B, won MVP. So now this is his gift. Okay, well, you're the MVP, but I'm the Finals MVP, and that's going to be the most. That's how you do controversial stuff, and that's how you bring it up. That's how you get Twitter riling up. You got to get Jokic getting it. You can't. There's no debate. And
Well,
Jamal Murray,
Jokic's played well too. I mean, it's not like he doesn't deserve it. I mean, he's been pretty damn good.
it's not about playing good. Kyrie played good versus Golden State, and he hit the shot of shots over Steph Curry. That don't matter. It's still King James. That's just how it is.
James was better in that series.
It's kind of like in the NFL. It's kind of like in the NFL. No matter how good a wide receiver or running back plays, it always goes to the quarterback.
Yes, it's just what it is. Just what it is.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean,
I don't agree. I think Jokic just deserves it.
Well, hell, you could go back and look at like the last 5 or 6 Super Bowl MVPs and probably pick 4 guys that should have won the MVP, but it went to the quarterback. And just like, I mean, Doc's example is perfect. Jimmy Butler, I was like, Jimmy Butler won the MVP over Caleb Martin? But
politics. The NBA isn't about what you see on TV. It's 60% still about politics. So people got to understand it's politics and a lot of stuff. Stuff is meant to happen the way it is. Jokic could have won a 3rd MVP, but politics said no.
Yes.
That's what it's about. It's not about the Jamal Murray's playing good, but like Cam said, he feeds off of Jokic. So I feel like Jokic's still the most valuable player on the team. Valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to, I don't want to get ahead of myself because Miami's not out of it. It's a 2-1 split right now. You gotta go win another game on the road for the Nuggets. If the Heat win, who is your MVP right now? Because for me, I think it's Bam.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
most
true.
Definitely. He's been Miami's best player in this series.
That's true.
Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page.
But if Miami wins the series, Jimmy Butler did something spectacular to win. I just don't see it. You're not going to win the championship with Bam being your best player.
Right. Yeah, I think Miami has a good chance to win on Friday night, and I think that will probably be it. Then I think Denver takes the next 2, and it's over.
Hopefully, I want to see a good series because if Denver wins, next game is over. They're going to championship game 5. Cam gonna be celebrating outside at the Brewery in Denver.
Yes,
all righty. So our playoff contest, and actually Cam got in late. So the board of directors at the home office disqualified him, but not our decision. Doc and I had a meeting with the home office, and we lobbied for you, Cam, to be in the playoff contest. The home office overruled us. So, but I think you were the only person that actually picked Denver to win it all. So it looks like you would have won it. But what we did was we had things going on after our initial predictions that gave us additional points. But the bottom line is nothing's going to change. Doc is the only one who has the Heat. But even if they win it, he doesn't have enough points to catch. So I ended up winning the playoff contest solely on the fact that I was the only person to have the Nuggets in the finals. But I didn't have them winning it. But I was the only person to have a correct team in the finals. So I ended up winning it. So Booney was second, Drew was third, and Doc is bringing up the rear. And I don't even think you can catch Drew even if the Heat wins. So, but anyway, all right. So let's see what we can get through in our mailbag. We got 3 questions. If we can't get through them all, we'll pick them up next week. I think they're all draft related. All right. So Mike says, I see you have Scoot Henderson going to the Blazers in your mock draft. That makes sense in terms of best available, but how would that work with Damian Lillard, Anthony Simmons, and Shaedon Sharpe already on the roster? Dame says he wants to stay, but only if the team can compete for a title. Taking Scoot seems like a long-term move that won't help in the near future. So for those, Portland has the number 3rd overall choice. I certainly see what he's saying. What are you going to do with another point guard? On our mock draft, we have them taking Scoot. And my thinking is this team is not going to be able to compete, especially if they lose Jeremy Grant. So I think that, I think the smart thing to do, not that Portland ever does the smart thing, would be to draft Scoot and trade Dame. What do you guys think?
past couple days, it's starting to look like Dame is moving towards, trade me. He was on a podcast either 2 days ago or yesterday, but talking about teams that he would like to go to if a trade happened. I think his list included Miami, Brooklyn, Boston.
Oh yeah, I heard he said that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was shocked. I was just like, because
he said Miami for sure. I remember him saying, who wouldn't want to go to Miami? Yeah.
But so to me, I think it is moving in that direction, but I'm still not convinced that the Hornets want Miller. I think they're going to take.
Why would they want Scoot though?
Well, I think
Good.
Similar to his brother, I think LaMelo, he's a big guy. I mean, he's damn near 6'8". His handle is solid, but I don't know. He's not really a penetrator. He's more of a perimeter-oriented, I'll run some pick and roll and hit the roll man. I think offensively, they could really benefit from having an additional ball handler that can run pick and roll and is hitting LaMelo on kickouts.
Nice.
I like that.
So you think Scoot could still sneak in the number 2?
I do
the
too.
number 2 overall pick.
He's been on the board at 2 for damn near 2 years now.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about draft boards though. I'm talking about where it makes sense for him to go in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think up until the college season, I think he was pretty accepted to be the second best prospect and not all that far behind Wemby. I think Hornets, they're in a situation where it's like, we just need some more talent. And they may or may not be getting Miles Bridges back. So it's like, do we
Why
really
wouldn't they get Bridges back? He's only suspended for 10 games.
Oh, well, they're getting him back. It's like whether or not they want to trade him or they want to continue with his legal issues. But and again, I've also heard people talk about like, hey, do we want to bring in another guy that's had some off the court issues when we're also taking back Miles Bridges?
That's true. That's true.
Kind of like if you're talking about the politics of the NBA, that's a direction to look in. Scoot's a pretty widely liked guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Blazers, they need to go for that young swing. It's just time. They're not doing a service to Dame by keeping him. They're not getting any better. He's not getting any younger or higher. Like his salary's not going down. So I think it's time for them to make the move, stash up on some picks.
Okay. All right. So your answer is to change my mock draft, but you also think that there's a good chance Dame is going to be moved, I put Scoot going to Portland. My thinking was first of all, my thinking always when I do a mock draft is you got to take the best player available and worry about it later. Now, the only way you would pick for need, if it's like you think Scoot and say Amen Thompson are basically equal, and then it comes down to need, But yeah, Jonah wants to know, why are the Mavs interested in bringing back Kyrie? I don't get that, but let's say they do, and they find a way to acquire LeBron, and then and then he puts in parentheses Kyrie's latest brainstorm. Could that trio win together? I guess this is kind of a two-parter. Should Kyrie come back to the Mavs? And if Kyrie comes back to the Mavs, and of course, as he says, it's kind of like a huge long shot that there would be Kyrie, LeBron, and Luka. Could that trio win? So, Doc, let's fix Mavericks team here. Should Kyrie come back? And if somehow he does, and they get LeBron, can they win?
Should Kyrie go back to the Mavs? He should go back to the Mavs. If that's the only team that's willing to pay him money, of course. Do I think he's going to go back? Well, he has to find a team that's willing to take on the money he wants. So Kyrie's in an interesting situation because he's a player that he can't sign anywhere. People got to understand he can't sign anywhere because no team got money. There's only about like 5 teams that can sign him just right out. And in his instance, the teams he want to go to all got to do a sign and trade. So I don't know. So that question is hard. But the other part with LeBron James is not going to the Mavericks. It's impossible. Who can the Mavericks give up? Tim Hardaway Jr.? Like, stop. Like, he's not going. That was ridiculous. I don't know why people even put stuff out like that. It's just a waste. So honestly,
it was Kyrie's idea. It was Kyrie's idea.
No, Kyrie mentioned it to someone, and then someone just wanted, okay, let me get clicks off this. Like,
okay.
It's not like Kyrie didn't put that out there, but I don't know, man. It's ridiculous. LeBron James is impossible for him to go to Dallas, especially since his son is going to a school in California. They did that on purpose so they could be close to each other. He could go to every game. So it's like he's not going. LeBron James is not going to Dallas. And if he did go, that would even be a worse defensive team ever. They're already bad defensive. Why going to keep getting bad at defense?
Yeah. Any other comments on Jonah's question?
I mean, the Mavs just have to bring him back out of desperation at this point. I mean, there's no tomorrow for that franchise right now, because if they screw this up even more and lose Kyrie, Luka's out of there. There's just no shot that he's staying, because they have capped themselves in terms of picks. They really don't have any to trade, and they've capped themselves on talent that's in-house, because they've gotten rid of all of their role players that did anything for them.
Yeah,
and they just don't have a way.
I will say this about the Mavs. I do think they got options. I do think they could trade Kyrie for Tobias Harris, or if Harden leaves the Sixers. I do feel like they have options to trade Kyrie for pieces, and then they could sign Chris Paul, and then they could trade for DeAndre Ayton. I do think they can make a team, but as if that's what Mark Cuban is thinking of. I do think they could definitely make a team out of this. I think Chris Paul would mesh well with Luka the same way how he meshed well with Harden. You know, I think that would be a better fit than Kyrie Irving. I don't think Kyrie Irving and Luka is a good fit at all. I just don't think it makes sense for the team. So I do think if they could trade Kyrie, I would definitely trade for Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is on 1 year left. Tobias Harris could play with a guy like Luka also. And then try to get DeAndre Ayton as they've been trying to get DeAndre Ayton. I think that's a good team. I think they could definitely go in next year as at least a top 4 favorite in the West with Chris Paul, Luka, Tobias Harris, and DeAndre Ayton. And that's a very possible and easy transaction that can happen. So,
yeah, I hear you there. But we're talking about Kyrie. He's the biggest wild card I think I can.
Might not even show.
Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question. He could take the veteran minimum somewhere. I wouldn't be shocked.
No, he's not doing that.
I still wouldn't be. He gave up a year of pay, basically.
I don't think. Yeah,
I take the veteran minimum. He just me.
He's basically done it before. He was on the Nets for free for like a season.
No, he made money on the Nets.
He wasn't. No, he was getting fined.
He was
giving up his money. Yeah, I mean, like he could do anything. He could do literally anything, and he could retire tomorrow, and I wouldn't be shocked. You truly could, but they need to get him in house. Find somebody that's willing to take his contract, because it's not a good fit. But I agree with you though.
So what you're saying is they got to salvage something. The reason why they'd bring back Kyrie is to salvage something from that trade last year.
Yeah, they need the value in order to move forward.
Right. All right, so we have another question, and James says, everyone keeps saying the Rockets are going to trade the number 4 pick, looking to get competitive again, as opposed to, I think what he's saying, as opposed to keep on drafting young guys. Does that make sense to you guys? And if so, who would you looking to be trade with and for whom?
I don't know.
By the way, number 4 pick, before you answer, the number 4 pick is looking like right now, it's looking like guys like one of the Thompson twins or Cam Whitmore or the
Scoot, maybe?
Huh?
Maybe Scoot?
Yeah, if he falls that far, but I doubt he would. But also the power forward for Houston, who's
Walker, Jasper Walker.
Yeah, right. Jerice Walker, Anthony Black, Grady Dick, or some other options. So that's what they're looking at staying at number 4. Question is, should they trade that pick? And if they do, what kind of veterans should they be looking for? What team should they be looking to trade with? What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, I don't know the value of that number 4 pick only because only the top 3 guys seem like the guys, and everybody else seem like it's like wild cards. I know the Thompson twins. I hear about the Thompson twins. I saw them play. They can't shoot. I don't trust.
No, they can't.
I can't. Yeah, I don't trust guys. If they got guys like that going like number 4 or 5 pick, I wouldn't even trade for the 4th pick. I don't see the value in it only because I don't know how these guys are going to get. If you look at previous drafts, drafting in a lottery isn't easy because these guys don't pan out ever. It'd be like the first 2 guys maybe, then everybody after that's a wild card. It's about situation and where they at and the opportunity they get. So, and those guys don't shoot. They can't shoot, and they don't play competitive basketball. They play that overtime elite. I don't trust that yet.
No, I don't either. Yeah. I'm with you.
Overtime elite got to show me something better than. Those guys got to come to the NBA and kill first for me to believe another guy after them is going to be good. I got to see it. And then once I see it, then I believe it. But I wouldn't trade. If I'm in other teams, I understand why Houston probably would want to be competitive. I can see it happening. Definitely if they get James Harden. That would make sense. But if you don't get James Harden, I don't see it at all.
Right. Any other thought? I mean, I agree. I think there's a significant drop off, at least in pick security. What you're going to get. Yeah, there's upside in the Thompsons and Jerice Wallace and Cam Whitmore, but damn, none of them have really shown. I'd say the one I trust the most would be Wallace because at least he did it for a full year at Houston. And that would probably be my choice.
Yeah, I just don't. How delusional of an owner do they have to think that they could become competitive by just signing one guy? They were the worst team in the NBA last year.
Right.
If you watched a Rockets
they
game,
shouldn't be though. I mean, in some ways they shouldn't be.
They're all young, but they also don't fit.
Right.
Like you have.
Well, they don't have a true point guard. Maybe the answer
will tell you he's an all-star though.
Maybe the answer is actually to trade up to get Scoot.
Possibility. They need a guard, but they don't have a defensive identity.
No. They
don't have any sort of organization on offense other than when they're throwing it into their big guy. Oh, I'm blanking on his name right now.
I think Scoot's the next Derrick Rose. I think he's that good.
Yeah, he's not that big.
I'm with you.
He's 6'3", 6'2".
He's built like a tank too.
Yeah, I mean, big enough with that speed and athleticism.
Yeah.
Not what
He's
Derrick
the
Rose.
one guy. I grew up watching D Rose at Memphis because that was a big rivalry when I was little. And like young D Rose, they both have that 2 foot.
Both have that same type of speed, yeah.
Yeah, but with the broad shoulders, I can push a guy out of my way if I need to. They can body the skinnier 6'6" guys. Like yeah. He's to me, there's nobody else I would take behind Wemby.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I love Miller. I think his ceiling is awesome. Like he really does have a hell of a season or a hell of a ceiling, both offensively and defensively. But I just think in terms of like making a team function, I think the ceiling from a team building perspective with Scoot is just way higher.
Yeah.
So we didn't answer James' question. Can they use this number 4 pick to get a decent player?
No. Unless some team absolutely loves the Thompson twins or Cam
Whitmore. I mean,
yeah.
There's some.
I like Cam a lot, not just because we share a name, but because I think he's got that athleticism, he's got the length, He's got
NBA ready body.
Handle.
Like, how about the Celtics? Could you see the Celtics trade Jaylen Brown to the Rockets?
No,
No.
No.
He's still raw. I think like you're looking at, there's a clear drop off from 3 in this draft. I think Whitmore is probably my 4th pick, but he is just not as developed as either Henderson or Miller. Like from his jump shot to his handle to his passing ability, he's just not there yet.
He's as explosive as anybody in the draft, though, Whitmore, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. And Jarris Walker too. That guy can jump.
6'7", 19 years old.
But
Jarris Walker's an athlete too.
Man, he's something else. But I just like the Rockets. Like there's a tier of NBA teams that are stuck in just perpetual mediocrity because they want to be a playoff team, but they're never going to be successful as a playoff team if their lineup doesn't make any sense, and their lineup makes 0 sense.
Right.
I would say about the 4th pick. You never know. Somebody might see some of the workouts, but it won't be like a championship caliber team. Like it won't be like the Boston Celtics. It won't be Milwaukee Bucks. So those teams still want to win a title. No young guys going to come to your team. Definitely none of those guys at 4 who's going to change the Boston Celtics to be better than Jaylen Brown coming up next season. So I don't think it won't be no good team like that. If anything, it'll probably be someone like the, I don't know, or some maybe not Mikal Bridges, but maybe nobody on their team probably even worth. Rockets probably won't trade other than Mikal Bridges, but Julius Randle probably, the Knicks will probably do that. Trade Julius Randle for the 4th pick. Honestly.
Yeah, I would do that if I was the Knicks.
Yeah, that's probably the only situation. It would be tough to trade because we don't know the value of that pick, but I feel like the Knicks would do it because I don't think they care for Julius Randle like that, but Julius Randle is looked at as an all-star, but he's not really he's like a sometime player. That's the type of value that 4th pick probably is, a guy like Julius Randle.
Right. Unless you package one of those 2 mismatched guards in Porter and Green. If you threw one of them in, then you could get a better player. But
definitely, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for the questions, folks, for these past 2 episodes. Appreciate it. That was Mike, Jonah, and James. Thank you. And if you'd like to send us a question, folks, please email it to admin@hoopsprospects.com. It's ADMIN. We also take questions via social media on Twitter @HoopsProspects, on Instagram @TheHoopsProspects, and on Facebook @HoopsPros. So I'd like to thank all you guys for helping out this week. It was great to see Cam again. And as always, I want to thank all our listeners. And I want to, there was no special guest to thank. So Cam, we'll make believe you were the special guest this week. And if you ever miss an episode, you can always get caught up at hoopsprospects.com. We will be back, not next week. We will be back tomorrow with our first episode involving the mock draft. Tomorrow we're going to do our lottery picks, and for then the next 3 episodes we're going to be doing them in chunks of 15 or so, all the way to the end of the draft. And even when we get to the end of the draft, we'll talk about some of the best undrafted players, since there's so many 2-way slots this year. We know some of these guys are going to have NBA jobs for sure. So we will see you tomorrow, folks.
All right, guys, thanks, man.
Any final thoughts, guys, before you say goodbye?
You guys want help with any notes for the
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you. If you want to get involved.